Order. The Planning and Zoning Commission is an independent advisory body of the City of Ames City Council. The Planning and Zoning Commission members are volunteers of the community and not part of the city administration. The Planning and Zoning Commission is supported by staff from the city's planning division. The commission is responsible for recommendations on matters involving subdivisions, annexations, master plans, and master site development plans, amendments to the zoning ordinance, and comprehensive plan amendments. We make our recommendations based on city codes, the facts presented, and input from the public. As an advisory commission, we welcome all comments regarding the proposed item. Please direct your input to the commission if you are speaking. If the proceedings become lengthy, we may ask that comments be focused on new information not previously presented. You may speak only once on an agenda item. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker information card and present it to the recording secretary. We ask that you come to the microphone to speak so that all comments may be recorded. The order of proceedings for each item on the agenda will be as follows. The city staff will present the staff report regarding the agenda item. Commission members will have an opportunity to ask questions of city staff. The applicant will be invited to make a statement regarding the request. Commission members will have an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant. Members of the audience will be invited to come forward and offer comments and questions. Once public comment is closed, city staff and the applicant will have an opportunity for concluding remarks. The commission will discuss the application based on all presentations and any comments given and come to a recommendation for city council. The discussion may include further questions of city staff and the applicant for clarification. And with that, we will move into the first item on the agenda. Introduction of commission members. Start down there.
Cheryl Moss.
Julie Winter.
Mike Clayton. Mike LaPetra.
Mike Sullivan.
Matthew Voss.
Jim Lickenstorf.
Okay. Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes of December 18th of 2024.
So move.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public forum is for speaking for items that are not on the agenda. Does anybody wish to come forward and speak to us regarding something that isn't on the agenda? Okay, so we will move on to rezone with master plan for 5119 and 5001 Lincoln Way from agricultural A to suburban residential low density, FSRL.
And I will be recusing myself for a conflict of interest.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm Ray Anderson, a planner for the City of Ames. This is a request for rezoning in the Sunset Ridge 12th Edition outlots YY and ZZ. The addresses are 5001 and 5119 Lincoln Way. They're shown on the location map on the screen here. One outlot is located here, and the other is here. The plan is to combine the two outlots into one parcel. That will be done through a different process than the rezoning, and be the location for church. The property is owned by the Lutheran Church of Hope, and they are the applicant. It's presently zoned as agricultural, shown on this graphic. And I might add that the only two outlots that are being requested for rezoning at this time are these two. There's two more lots in this subdivision Lot 1 and Outlot XX, they are not part of the rezoning. They will remain as agricultural for now. The proposed zoning is to rezone it to FSRL, which is shown here. Again, it's just these two outlots. And the Ames Plan 2040 is shown on this graphic, the designation as RN3. That's a land use designation, which is called Residential Neighborhood 3, RN3. And it describes these areas as containing a variety of residential types and neighborhood services. The characteristic of the RN3 area is a conventional subdivision layout of primarily single-family development at low and medium density residential. And FSRL is the one of the zoning districts that is identified in the Ames Plan 2040 as being appropriate to implement the RN3 land use designation. And that's what's proposed is the FSRL. There are others, but FSRL is the proposed zoning designation, and it is consistent with the land use designation in the Ames Plan 2040. The FSRL zone requires a master plan. Shown here. The master plan combines the two outlots into one parcel, and primarily the use of this property would be the campus for the church, which is shown here in this brown color. The green area here is open space. That would be the other use that is proposed. The church campus area would include the church building, associated parking, drives, sidewalks, and landscaping. And the building details are not yet finalized, but current concept anticipates that the building would be located near Lincoln Way and centered within the site for the church to be built out in phases. Potential access points would be from Lincoln Way and from Durant Street, which is on the west here, this location, and then the frontage road, which is at this location. They show on the master plan 2 access points from Lincoln Way. As staff, we are supporting 1 access to Lincoln Way, not 2. And they plan to change the master plan to show that before it goes to city council. The green area, again, is the other use of the site. It's identified as open space. It will include stormwater detention area to manage the stormwater for the entire 12th edition of Sunset Ridge subdivision. And it will allow for incidental improvements to the pond, additional features such as walking paths could be implemented. Other open space elements, clear cutting of the vegetation is not something that would be permitted. A traffic impact letter was prepared and reviewed by the city's traffic engineer. And it was the traffic engineer found that it was satisfactory for assessing the current conditions and identifying potential impacts and mitigation needs with the addition of the church as a use of the site. Specific improvements that are recommended in the traffic impact letter would be to to include a left turn lane access to the new driveway off of Lincoln Way, and ultimately striping between Hartford and Thackeray would be modified to provide a 3-lane section across that frontage. The infrastructure that would be extended to this site is available on adjacent properties. It would be at the expense of the developer to extend the infrastructure into the site. It is not planned that any streets would be extended through the site. The street here at Durant ends at the property line to meet subdivision standards. It would likely require a cul-de-sac turnaround with the extension of the drive into the site that would access the proposed parking areas. So there would be a cul-de-sac in the site off of the end of Durant. A Plata survey, as I mentioned earlier, will be required to combine the 2 outlots into one parcel. That's a separate procedure that will not involve the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the site plan would, along with and as part of a special use permit application, would need approval by the Zoning Board of Adjustment to allow a church on this site. So it not only requires the rezoning and the platting, but they would have to go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment and request approval of a special use permit for the use on this site. And then there's specific criteria they would need to meet. And part of that approval would be the site plan for the site that staff would review prior to it going to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Our recommendation as staff is that this be recommended for approval by the City Council with the rezoning from agricultural to suburban residential low density FSRL with an updated master plan that allows for the use of the site with the church. The master plan would be updated as different phases of the church would be constructed. So that would be an ongoing process with the master plan. But our recommendation is for approval. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Just a minor question. Are cul-de-sacs often treated within the property? Is that when a cul-de-sac extends into the property, is that part of the property still maintained by the owner of the land rather than the city?
Well, it would become public right of way.
Okay.
It'd be an extension of the street.
It can vary a little bit. If it's built and spaced completely to city standards and dedicated as right of way, then we take it over. If there's a smaller version that meets our usability requirements and they want to keep it as easement, that's possible. So it's almost all of them are public as right of way. In this unique situation where you're talking about a transition to a parking lot, it may benefit them to keep it as an easement that is functional for turning around as well. So that'll be something that's decided with the site plan.
I'm curious about the driveways, specifically off of Lincoln Way. I know when this came up in the fall, some of the traffic on Lincoln Way was brought up by several members of the public. So I know staff is recommending, or staff is planning to request that there eventually only be one driveway off of Lincoln Way. would there be any possibility when the site plan comes of not having driveways off of Lincoln Way, but just having the frontage and then the Durant Street entrance? Or would that be insufficient for the church's size and amount of parking?
I would say that the traffic assessment didn't analyze that condition. So it looked at assuming there was a dispersion of traffic onto Lincoln Way directly from the site. So if that was not a component of the plan, we'd probably have to reevaluate how Durant functions as an intersection. It probably is not any different in terms of street improvements that would be needed, but it would obviously change how that block operates for those homes accessing a site that way. And then the other entry point is on the southeast corner. I don't know if we said that or not. So it's Durant. The frontage road would have a driveway as well. And then the new point of access would be a driveway directly onto Lincoln Way is what's proposed. And that's what was in the traffic study.
Is there a light at that intersection
No.
right there? Okay.
Only light is at South Dakota and Lincoln Way. There's no warrants for signals at Durant or with this project in the traffic study. Long-term, the city's intent, the long-term transportation plan has an evaluation of a signal at Wilder, but that is unrelated to the church.
So Kelly, just confirming then there's on that southeast corner would be one entrance and then a second entrance somewhere along the frontage of the parcel on Lincoln Way.
Correct.
Okay.
So with a master plan, and when we do master plans, residential master plans kind of show more of a bubble diagram like this that talk about set aside areas and primary access points to a development site. Non-residential uses can include additional details if required by council, but we approach this as points of access and the reserved area as being adequate at this point in time for the master plan. And that was, and we had the traffic study to kind of look at the access points and understand how that would work.
Ray mentioned a 3-lane cross section through the area on Lincoln Way. Would that follow through past that next intersection?
Don't have the striping. We talked about this last week internally, so that there's no change to the pavement width of Lincoln Way. It's a striping plan. So it would
Okay.
go from Durant, it'd make a complete 3-lane section somewhere as a transition at Durant,
Okay.
and then to the east until it matches up past Thackeray. So
Okay.
whatever the configuration is, it will then be a complete striping plan across the whole frontage.
I was just thinking, yeah, you want to make sure that the left turn lane, continuous left turn lane is going to work.
Right. So at this point, there's no access, so it's not
Okay.
striped in any way for that. But the roadway width is adequate for that. And when we do the special use permit, there'll be a striping plan that goes along with the proposal for the driveway. There'll be that striping plan, so we have the whole plan there.
Any other questions?
Oh, I just want to, on your question, Matthew. So the master plan indicates the proposed points of entry. That does not mean the zoning board of adjustment can't make other decisions.
Right.
It would, if it conflicted with having multiple entry points on Lincoln Way, that would be different. But if they made a determination that something else did not meet special use permit criteria, that's within their purview to make that decision.
Any other questions? Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward and make a statement?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Erin Olendike. I'm with Civil Design Advantage. My address, 4121 Northwest Urbandale Drive in Urbandale. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Lutheran Church of Hope. We're really here to just answer any questions that you might have.
No? Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, would any members of the audience like to come forward and make a statement?
I'll take a card back with me because I didn't fill one out yet. I'm Liz Snella, and I live at 306 Hartford, which means that my driveway is on Durant between Hartford and the proposed stub. And I'd really like to hear more about, I don't think that street will take much traffic. It is barely enough for 2 cars at this point wide. And I'm actually quite concerned, especially about your comment that that be a major entrance for the church. Because right now, if I've been in situations where I can't turn into the subdivision off of Lincoln Way because there is a FedEx truck sitting by one of the homes where the divided entrance is. And along with that, and Durant being so narrow, you couldn't fit parking on one side and 2 lanes of traffic. And I'm just worried that using Durant as a major entrance for the church would not be a viable thing to do, just because it wouldn't handle the traffic. Hartford wouldn't handle the traffic. It right now is 2 ways with 1 side of parking. If on a busy church event, I don't think that would be sufficient. Thank you for listening to me, and I will fill out one of the cards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sure. You're good.
Hi, I'm Dick Lee. We've lived for 40 years on Todd Drive, and we've seen a lot of traffic and a lot of increase in traffic on Lincoln Way, both directions. And I'm jealous because we'd hate to lose the field and back because we see deer and we've had pheasants and everything else, but we know that's going to happen at some point. But I would have a concern that westbound traffic on Lincoln Way would, if you're not having a turn lane, that is going to back traffic up quite a bit if there's no right turn lane on westbound Lincoln Way. We just seen people fly through there, and it's almost bumper to bumper at times, especially afternoons and early mornings. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hossein Naragi. I'm a resident of Hartford Drive as well. Well, first thing, I'm going to echo what she said, that Durant is a major problem because it's already in that intersection. We have school buses that frequently on many different, like 3 times per day for the morning and 3 times in the afternoon, they're staying there and just leaving the children out of the bus. And also that, like the traffic is sitting on that street. If you want to redirect traffic to the church from that street, Hartford to Durant, that is going to be major problem for all residents of that street. That is not viable at all, in my opinion. And also, I don't know what's the projection traffic of going to church, but probably from Lincoln or a frontage road there, it's a viable option to have it there, in my opinion. So the other thing is, my opinion, like this land is placed for a natural habitat right now, like a lot of natural habitat. That there was a tree that I was seeing a owl up there, and I've been told that owl is just unique in Iowa, just is very unique species in there. And I don't know why, I'm sorry to say that, why in the name of God we are trying to get rid of the natural habitat there? And is that something that is going to help us to believe in God, bringing the church to the location that killing all the natural habitat? That is not going to be good. That is not going to be good. In the name of church, we do all these things against the environment, against the natural habitat. What's the solution for those animals that have no choice, no place to go? What we can do for them? Like, that's totally is not a good thing to bring church to that area. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Would someone else like to come up? Okay. The city have any concluding remarks?
Typically, we'd let the applicant have a chance to respond first, and then if there's any other comments or questions of staff.
Good evening, Chris Canary with the Church of Hope. First of all, thank you, neighbors, for coming out. We definitely are coming to this community. We've been in this community for about 5 years now. Part of the reason the Durant intersection we think is a good thing is in West Des Moines, when we built our first location, we chose not to connect to the neighborhood because of the concerns that were similar to tonight. And at the time we said, hey, we don't want to drive traffic. What we learned at our next campuses in Johnson Grimes and also on community campus over in Ankeny is by actually connecting to the neighborhoods, we actually decrease traffic. Because all the people, if you look living up there, people coming on Lincoln Way are not going to go through the neighborhood to get to church. What we found is the second connection to the neighborhood actually gives those people a chance to come to church and leave church without coming down the Lincoln Way, adding more traffic. So the connection there is, if you just look logistically, we're going to have 2 entrances on Lincoln Way, one coming off the side, one going off there. What we do to other campuses like Ankeny, we come in one way on 36th Street, we leave the other way on 36th Street. The back lot to the neighborhood is just for those people who live there. So obviously we're here in this community. The nature, thank you for that. One of the reasons we're keeping the top right-hand corner undisturbed is it's beautiful. There's a 100-year-old tree up there. I mean, part of the reason this congregation actually sold property out to the north to spend almost double to buy this property was we love the nature that God created here, and we love the fact that this is there. And the existing owner really wanted something to keep it more nature than more commercial and multifamily. So we felt like by keeping the top right-hand corner unpreserved, keep a walking path around there, and embrace the nature. So that's the goal of that. But as far as the traffic and other things, we definitely felt like the connection to Durant will actually reduce traffic to that community because it'll allow people coming in from up to the north. Because it's not, if you look at it in the map and go out, there's not a lot of streets above there coming through there. So it's really the connection to the neighborhood. Turn lanes, I believe there is going to be a right turn lane coming off Lincoln Way and also the left turn way coming. So I believe turn lanes will be covered as well. Other good news, traffic study probably showed this. When we're the busiest is at the time when Lincoln Way is normally not as busy. When I'm in your community, come visiting your church on Sunday morning, I've driven this site. It's not the traffic you see during the week. So a lot of times what we do is off-peak time. So, but thank you, and thank you all.
Thank you.
So before you close the hearing, I'll just comment on the traffic study. It's available if people wanted to see it. So the way it was modeled, it was almost 50-50 approaching from the west, 50% approaching from the east, which makes sense. Arterial Street, that's where people are going to come from. 5% of access was through the Hartford Durant, and that was reflective of essentially what the applicant just said, kind of that neighborhood traffic that filters through to a site. All the other access points would be from Lincoln Way. So it would be like I said, if there was no access to Lincoln Way, it would be, we'd have to reevaluate the traffic study if that's what was to happen on how Durant and Hartford function.
Kelly, I have a quick question just regarding the master plan up there for the items in green. That's obviously something that the developer and the applicant is voluntarily doing. Is that a voluntary action by the applicant?
It's their proposal and we're accepting that.
Okay.
So we did not say you must do it this way. This was their proposal.
Okay. I know that I'm just thinking back to the comments in the fall that we had. There were a lot of folks who voiced similar concerns about environmental. And I know that there was an initial study done on that as per, I think, city requirements. But I guess just the passing comment would be if staff had considered anything about a conservation easement or something that would ensure that delicate portions of that parcel are protected.
It could be required. I think at this point, we were looking at the special use permit to be the control of the overall site.
Okay.
So again, an easement is always a possibility to add another layer of legal limitations on a property, but the special use permit is also going to establish what's allowed where on the property as well. So again, as they've said, the pond's not going to go away. The trees around the pond are not going to go away. The healthy ones, they may or may not put some kind of walking path around it. But in general, that area is going to be minimal disturbance. And that's what I assume the special use permit application is going to illustrate all of that for us. And again, if an easement's necessary, it could be required.
Okay. And just as a check on that, then if they pull that special use permit and if it's approved, is there a check to ensure that the developer has followed through and not taken out trees and not that they said they did what they said they were going to do?
To get your certificate of occupancy for constructing the building, you need to comply with the approved plan. If for some reason a substantial amount of vegetation was removed that wasn't supposed to be removed, you're not going to withhold occupancy of a whole building. There'd be some other kind of citation for not complying with the approved plan, which would be a monetary fine.
But then after certificate of occupancy is obtained, there's no other checks in place for moving forward land use or special protection of that area.
It's a little vague probably for me to exactly answer. The city has on no property a tree removal ordinance that prohibits that. So the only way it is managed is through a site plan process when it's a non-residential property. So we do not have a tree protection ordinance for any property in this city.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Will further consideration be given to access off of Durant?
Well, I mean, we expect it to have that secondary type of access route into the site. Staff is supportive of a Lincoln Way driveway. We think it makes the church site function much better and it keeps the traffic out of the neighborhood, except for neighborhood traffic that would already be there.
I have some questions about Durant. Isn't it expected to be extended westward as Hunziker builds out multifamily in the southwest corner? I think we heard something about that maybe 6 or 8 months ago.
So
I think it's
further to the west, yeah.
Connect to 500 Avenue.
So what Jim is referring to is west of Wilder is about 40 acres of land that has yet to be development. It hasn't been zoned yet. There's been different conversations about that. In all likelihood, Durant would come into that site along with Springbrook and along with Elston. And it's a residential neighborhood. If that's what happens with those streets, they would interconnect, and then at least one street would make it all the way out to county line. Not all of those would.
Yeah. So I think if we improve a connection to Durant now, as that space gets developed, there's likely to be more traffic through the neighborhood. Full disclosure, I live off Elston on the northwest corner, about 3,000 feet from the center of the church site. And so I'm familiar with this intersection and fairly familiar with it. I also don't think it would support much more traffic than already goes through the neighborhood. I also find it hard to believe and hard to accept the argument that people who live in this neighborhood would want to drive to church. And the access off to Durant is for the neighbors. It's probably less than a 10-minute walk, and I think we'd be in a much better position to encourage a multi-use path or walkability to this facility rather than encouraging people who live 3,000 feet to get in a car and drive. I think that's more consistent with the comp plan too. So I just do not think I don't think it's a good idea to extend access to the site off Durant for many reasons, especially future development. Any comment?
It was a comment, so I didn't feel like I had to respond. So if there's a question, I'll respond to a question.
Well, I mean, shouldn't we be thinking more about multimodal and
So the plan would
bike
include
path and, walkability. If that's the true purpose of connecting to the neighborhood, I think that's a much better use. Is that consistent with the?
So I'm not going to probably apply should. I would say that with the extension of Durant Inn as an access, it will have sidewalk connections. So the walkability will be there. The bicycle access is on street or on the shared use path on Lincoln Way. So from a multimodal perspective, the site already has those features and they'll bring those accesses into the site with the church. So for us as staff, the multimodal needs are already met. I don't know that would change who drives or doesn't drive from Sunset Ridge to the site. If they do drive, now they're driving further down to Lincoln Way to come up and into a driveway. So I don't know that I would say that it would materially change the volume of traffic from Sunset Ridge into the site if there was a Durant, if Durant did not exist as a street access. Because I think those same vehicles would travel down to Lincoln Way and back into the site.
Do we have a number of vehicles that we expect to access and then leave this site?
Yeah, so the trip, let me pull it up quick. So the traffic study, they just have a peak hour generator for Sunday morning is all they have listed in here. And for a 750 seat auditorium, they have it listed at 370 peak hour trips on a Sunday morning. So that's the number that's in the traffic study. And that's exiting and entering all in that same hour.
370, did you say?
370.
Are there any similar church sites in Ames that we could compare it to a bit with the traffic patterns? What the impact is?
I mean, off the top of my head, I don't know seating capacity of the different churches, but you have Heartland Baptist off of Stang. They have a single point of entry off of Stang. They have, I don't know if they're 750 seats. They're probably close to that. Maybe they're a little bit smaller. You have just a different variety of sizes of churches across town. The last one built was Heartland Baptist. That's why I bring it up.
There's a couple churches on 24th, is it, that only have one access?
On Bloomington, you have two other smaller churches with Stonebrook and Ascension Lutheran, and they have Stonebrook has a single point of access. I know they don't love that. Ascension now has a second egress route that they added about 5 years ago when they did an addition to their church. And again, there's lots of other churches around town. It's just I don't know the capacity of their worship area to kind of make them comparable. And on the other, just to be clear, on the other end of the spectrum, Cornerstone is multiples larger than this. So if you're wondering how does that compare, like Cornerstone is way beyond anything that is proposed here. So that is not a comparable type of facility to what Hope Lutheran's proposing.
And the numbers you gave were the capacity if it were completely full?
The main, yeah, so the main
the
worship area,
average.
the number, so what they're assuming is the worship area, the normal seating area of the church was 750 seats, benches, seats, whatever that is. That's the number they used in the traffic study. So does that mean that they cap it at 750 if more people show up? No, but that's the typical setting that they looked at for that. And from a roadway capacity, Lincoln Way has no roadway capacity issues. It is an average daily trip volume and the future condition of under 9,000 trips a day. A 3-lane road has a capacity approaching 15,000 trips. So that the overall function of Lincoln Way is not at issue to our traffic engineer. And then again, 5% of trips out of 370, we're talking about 18 trips on the Hartford Durant segment. We can't guarantee that's the right percentage, but that was the assumption of the other traffic engineer in terms of how people would approach the site. And if Durant connects through, I think that's a little bit of an unknown if people would think that's advantageous to turn left and go through local streets through Sunset Ridge to get here versus coming down to Lincoln Way and and heading east on Lincoln Way to get to the site. I just don't know that we would know at this point in time how that'll function.
If Lincoln Way has no problem handling all the traffic, is there really a need for Durant?
But it doesn't relieve congestion on Lincoln Way. That is not how the traffic study put that. I think it's the same as what the applicant just said. It is convenience for a neighborhood to be able to approach and access the site. That is their proposal. Staff believes Durant can handle that amount of traffic, and Hartford is not significantly impacted by that either. So we did not oppose having a street connection to a parking lot there.
Sir, I'm not ignoring you. I see your hand, but the public comment is closed, isn't it?
You didn't say the public hearing was closed, but that's up to you if you're going to take any more comment.
But
But we usually do not let speakers speak more than once, just to be clear.
that's right. Yeah.
So,
All right. My bad.
so I'm saying it has to be new
Go ahead.
information.
Well, just came up after your comments and discussion came up. So the point on, you said 5% of the access from Durant is for the purpose of that residential neighborhood, 5%, right? And 95% is expected to be on Lincoln Way. So we are assuming that 5%. How about if from that 95%, it happened that 40% going to use that access? Are we guaranteed that none of those is going to go use that access, or only just residential people using that access? So if we are worried about the traffic impact and coming that 5%, which barely is possible, as he said, they drive to the church, we are worried about them coming to Lincoln and go to the church. That's not much of the impact if we assuming the whole 5% are coming here. But what if the 40% of this 95% try to go from that access? That is going to be a huge problem. That's one thing. The other thing, on the Lincoln Way, the speed limit is 45 miles per hour there. That's already, when we want to go to Hartford, is a problem that many times we see that back vehicle is kind of stopping hard because they are not expecting somebody's going to turn right. Although there is a right turn lane, but it should be, the speed limit for that purpose is high over there. 45 is hard. I'm a transportation engineer myself. At that section, 45 is the highest speed limit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I guess we'll close public comment at this time. Any further questions for the city? Do we have a motion?
I'd like to just go back to traffic a little bit. I mean, I'll just say, my question earlier wasn't directed necessarily in support of, making Durant a primary entrance. I think, in my mind, the frontage sort of across from Thackeray should function as the primary entrance to the property. And I mean, to the extent there are driveways on Lincoln Way to sort of relieve, especially pressure from exiting vehicles, I think that's definitely good. But having those sort of uncontrolled driveways, if Lincoln Way does get more busy in the future, seems like it might not work the greatest. So I think that sort of frontage entrance should function as the primary entrance. And I think Durant, especially in site design, I think there's the possibility to make sure that it's more of a secondary, and even I don't see many people wanting to go through the residential just to avoid, getting out onto Lincoln Way. So yeah, that's, I think, where I stand on the traffic.
I think just briefly getting away from the traffic questions, I do like the idea of, even in an indirect way, preserving nature. And there is a lot of, construction. And there, to me, there is a point of that even if it's not guaranteed, that it's in some ways a way of preserving that.
Yeah, I'll agree with that and sort of agree with maybe what was alluded to earlier with having something in the special use permit to maybe more solidify the preservation of that open space. At the same time, I also note, there's a lot of forested area and green space that is just to the north there along the creek and then will be preserved in the city park that will be up there. So there's still going to be a lot of green space in this area and up to the north.
Do we have a motion yet, or?
I'll move approval of alternative 1, that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends that the city council approve the request to rezone 5119 and 50,001 Lincoln Way and adjacent right-of-way from agricultural A to suburban residential low density, FSRL, with an updated master plan that allows for the use of the site with the church.
Second.
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
All right, so as a rezoning, this will be, it's anticipated that it would go to city council on February 25th. There'll be another notice for that meeting to verify that date, but that's the intent at this point in time.
I just commission comments.
Yeah.
Sort of a strange one, but I just returned from Owine this afternoon, where family lives, and I saw the difference in Owine that city planning and city staff and this kind of thing makes. They've had some new businesses there, but their rules that are so irritating to me at times have made it a much more beautiful place and a much more usable, attractive. So I just really want to thank the staff and everybody for their hard work and aims to make it the community we have.
Hey, sorry I screwed up on that.
Wasn't sure if you wanted the hearing open or not, but yeah, so.
Do we have a meeting in 2 weeks?
Actually, would it be,
3 weeks.
It'll be 3.
are we
Yeah.
at 3 now?
Yeah,
That's
it's
2nd
three.
and 4.
Yeah, so we moved next week's meeting to tonight, so no meeting next week, right? And then 2 weeks out would be the 19th.
Okay.
I would say it's unlikely right now, but I can't say we're canceling because it's 3 weeks out.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, move to adjourn?
Move adjournment.
Nope.